Okay, so I I did something interesting today and a little funny. I made up rules for a new sport, and I would like to share them with my future self and anyone who watches the video. And sadly enough, I was reading them out loud to myself just a minute ago, and then I just realized I forgot to hit the record button, so now I have to do it all over again. So here I go again for the second time. So here we go. Well, this thing is going to be played on a soccer field, football field, something of that size. So if you know what the size of that looks like, feels like, there you go. You got it in your mind. You got a little mental picture of that. And the goal looks something like 3 consecutive rings that the ball goes into, and the rims of the goal are not rigid, but they have give so that the ball doesn't bounce off of them. And the rings have different points assigned to them, meaning that um, in basketball you only have one net, one rim. Well, these would have 3 rims that kind of circle each other, and each one would have a different point score assigned to it, and hopefully they would be kind of bigger as they go out, meaning meaning each following one would be easier to score in, and the outermost one would be worth the least. I'm thinking 1 point. The next one in be worth like 3 or 4, maybe 2 if you want to get that. I prefer 3 or 4, but the one dead in there, the innermost one, I would say be worth something like 10 points. Maybe you say 8 or something like that, but I say 10 because I would make that thing almost impossible to score in. Something that's basically um, a little bit bigger than whatever shape, size, ball ends up being used. Um, yeah. Okay. A goalie can try to block the ball from getting into the rim using any part of his body, much like soccer. I think that's pretty self-explanatory. Um, I would hope that he tries not to touch the rim as much as possible, but we can decide upon that because in soccer the goalie touches the rims. I mean, I don't think there's any rule against that. Um, but if you touch the rim, that doesn't really help you out very much, the way I mentally picture it. So um, the ball can be thrown, kicked, or placed into the goal, but not dunked into the goal, and a penalty will be assessed if it is, even if it is an accident. That's a big selling point. You can't dunk it into the goal. Uh, no dunking. The ball is much like a football in American football, but much more soft, similar to a Nerf ball. However, it's more durable than a Nerf ball. As you know, if you played with Nerf balls. I don't know if that kind of ball would last one game. A Nerf ball. That thing, I don't know. Those things can be short-lived. especially if you're playing a professional game where there's all these people going, well, being grabby about that kind of thing. Okay, there are 10 periods, each consisting of 5 minutes. Yeah, I don't know. I think soccer has 15-minute periods. Maybe it's 10 minutes, but football has 15-minute periods or quarters. And so it has 10 periods of 5 minutes. And the team that starts with the ball, I thought this was interesting, will be determined by answering a question from the sciences, engineering, philosophy, or any other kind of university-worthy material. So, smarty pants question. And the team that answers the question will also be awarded with points equal to 1 inner ring goal. So whatever is the innermost ring, however many points get determined by that, whatever, I think I was going to say it's 10, because that's what I think it should be. But, it ends up gets to be determined it's 8 or whatever. When you answer that question and get the ball, you'll also get that many points. So answering that question is crucial, because if you keep losing that question, you're going to be on, you might lose the game just because of that. Okay, the sport is also played in any weather. That's a little homage to football. Don't pussy out because it's snowing out. You don't pussy out. You play in the snow. All right, it's fucking 2 degrees out. You play in that shit. All right. Each period plays without timeouts. That'll cut down on the commercials. There are 7 people on a team, and you do not need to play with a goalie. It would probably be a good idea to play with a goalie, but that's a good way to surprise the other team, I guess. Each team may have 7 reserve players, which you can also assist, I suppose, and also in answering the period question. I just wanted to put that in there and explicitly state that, because it's kind of necessary to explicitly state that second part, because you need to have reserve players in there, because any kind of sport that's going to be remotely physical, you're going to end up with injuries, so you have to have reserve players. And you might as well have them helping out with the answering questions, because I don't want to deal with people developing ways to have hand signals and shit to answer questions. Fuck that. Just let them help. Players play with no body protection, as in basketball and soccer. However, aggressiveness and deliberate attempts to injure other players can be punished by ejection from a game. Yes, that is consistent with other sports, so let's do it here too, because don't want to be too physical. Players pass the ball back and forth from each other like in basketball, and I believe soccer to do that freely. Freely without pauses between passes. Unlike football, you kind of make everybody go back to the line of scrimmage and stuff after a play is completed. After a goal is made, the situation is like basketball. So team on the side which the goal was scored gets the ball at the goal line and proceeds with it. So you make a goal, the other team gets it, and maybe they'll step back out of bounds and then throw it back at another player or something like that. I don't know exactly. We'll figure out the minutia and then proceed forward with it and stuff like that. Okay, if the ball goes out of bounds, the team who did not kick or throw the ball out gets to return the ball into play. It's pretty obvious, I think. If the ball becomes under a pile-up, then the ref will break up the pile-up and determine the possessor of the ball, and that team's player will get to throw the ball back into play at the yard line of the pile-up from out of bounds. So I think that's pretty self-explanatory too. You know, because the ball, my idea of the ball is that it's not going to be round. And even if it is round, because of my envisionment of how the sports play, eventually there's probably going to be a situation where somebody ends up jumping on the ball or trying to grab the ball, and somebody else tries to grab the ball, and then one of them reaches into it on his chest, and it just ends up being a big pile up, and then it's kind of like football. It ends up with a pile up, and then the refs have to start pulling them off and stuff, and then find out who ends up with the ball, and then everybody's gotta, you gotta go on the sideline and throw the ball back in. So there you go. Yeah. And I just gotta say it. I think it's kind of goes without saying, but I just wanted to say it explicitly. A player can move the ball with his feet or hands. Just needed to say it in there. Now, this may have to be changed later on, but I think it's kind of a funny thing to at least try to do. Players do not play with cleats. I think that might be an especially interesting thing to watch in rain. Because watching them slip and slide around and trying to handle themselves in rain and snow and all this adverse weather conditions, and especially hearing them just say, well, the weather, you gotta do what you gotta do, and all them aftertalks, and seeing maybe having a score of a game that would usually be really high scoring and is having a low scoring. I don't know. I just try it out and see what happens. All right, and this is the last one that I got so far. There is a buzzer for the question component, and if you answer incorrectly, you lose points equal to the one outer goal. The questioning goes on until one team wins the right to start the period. So that would be like, you hit the buzzer, you answer the question, it's wrong, you lose 1 point. So not a huge loss, but it makes it so that everybody's not just pushing the buzzer right away. There should be some incentive for, so I guess some disincentive for, if you don't know it, at least trying to think it right away. Trying some punishment for getting it wrong. And that's a little bit of a punishment. Because if you lost, say, 10 points for getting it wrong, that would be really bad. So I think this is a good place to start off. Maybe losing the 10 points is a better thing, but and I think if we did end up losing the 10 points, then you'd have to consider allowing a score to go negative then. And this would be the only sport in which scores could go negative. Yeah, scores couldn't go negative. Yeah. Oh boy. So those are the rules for the game that I made up. A game called Football Soccer so far. I think it's an interesting concept for a game. Some people may not. They may think that's fucking stupid. I like my football or soccer or basketball. I think it's better because it's kind of like taking good parts from all of them, mushing them together, and also adding something that no sport has, which is adding fucking intelligence. The necessity of adding brain power to a game, which no sport has, by the way. No sport values academic intelligence whatsoever. And this one would value it as much as any other sport, any other thing, which I think is very necessary in our society. If you had a sport that valued academic intelligence, I think that would go a long way towards making people want to go to college and want to go to school. They would see that as, because then there would be even someone on the reserve part of the team, you know, someone that went to school and knew a little bit about everything, would be an integral component of the team. I mean, because if they could just answer every question, they could beat out every other person's academic on the team. That means they could get 100 points for their team every game, and the ball at the start of every period, which would be, I mean, that would be unbelievable. That would be an unbelievable advantage in this kind of game. And he wouldn't have to play. Well, until the other 6 guys had to go in. Then you would hope that he at least went through the training that the coach put him through. And because, you know, if your coach doesn't make your reserve academic go through some training, then that's a bad coach. You have to have some kind of physical training, quite frankly. But yeah, that's my video. That's my game. And I hope someone has the balls to try and make a comment about it or something like that. So that's a shout out to Future Me. Have a good night and or jerk off session, Future Me.